Right now, somewhere in your body, an alarm might be going off. Not the kind you can hear. Not the kind you can silence with a button. It feels like sadness. It feels like emptiness. But what if it isn't an emotion at all? What if loneliness is something much older, much stranger, and far more urgent than a feeling? Your brain didn't build this alarm to make you sad. It built it to keep you alive. For most of human history, being alone didn't just feel bad. It was a death sentence. A lone human on the savannah 200,000 years ago had no wall between them and the world. No spear-throwing cousin nearby, no aunt to warn them a predator was circling. Alone meant exposed. Alone meant hunted. So somewhere deep in the architecture of the human nervous system, a circuit formed. Its only job was to notice disconnection and scream about it before it became fatal. That circuit never got the memo that the world changed. Psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying this exact alarm. He called it the loneliness effect, and what he found should unsettle you. Chronic loneliness doesn't just sit quietly in the mind. It raises blood pressure. It disrupts sleep. It floods the body with stress hormones like cortisol, the same chemical your ancestors would have produced while running from a lion. Cacioppo's research suggested that the body of a lonely person can behave physiologically as though it is under constant threat. Not sometimes, constantly. Think about that for a moment. Your body may not know the difference between missing a friend and being stalked by a predator. That sounds absurd until you consider how the brain actually processes danger. It doesn't have a separate department for social threats and physical threats. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran a now famous study where participants were placed in a brain scanner and made to feel socially excluded during a simple ball-tossing game. The other players simply stopped throwing to them. A small thing, a trivial thing, you might think. But the brain scans told a different story. The same regions that activate during physical pain lit up during social rejection. Being left out and being hurt were, to the brain, nearly the same event. Why would evolution build it this way? Because for a social species, exclusion was never trivial. Humans didn't survive by being strong. They survived by being together. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, famous for his research on primate social groups, proposed that the human brain grew larger specifically to manage relationships. Tracking who owes you a favor, remembering who betrayed the group last winter, knowing who to trust with your children while you hunted. Dunbar's work suggests the human brain is, at its core, a social organ first and a reasoning organ second. Connection wasn't a bonus feature of being human. It was the operating system. So when that system detects isolation, it doesn't whisper. It screams. This is where the story takes a darker turn. In 2015, a massive analysis led by researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad combined data from over 3 million people across dozens of studies. The question was simple. Does loneliness actually kill you? The answer was almost too clean to be comfortable. Holt-Lunstad found that chronic social isolation was associated with a mortality risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not stress, not a bad mood, a measurable physical increase in the chance of dying early. 15 cigarettes for simply being alone. That number forces a reframe. Loneliness was never just an emotional inconvenience society could optionally address. It behaves biologically like a health condition. And if it behaves like one, maybe it should be treated with the same seriousness. But here is the strange twist buried underneath all of this. The alarm itself isn't the problem. The alarm is doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem is the world it now rings inside of. For 200,000 years, humans lived in tight, overlapping bands of maybe 50 to 150 people, a number Dunbar calculated as the natural ceiling of relationships a human brain can meaningfully track.
everyone in that group knew your face. Everyone had a stake in your survival, because your survival was tied to theirs. Isolation in that world was rare, and when it happened, it was almost always temporary, and almost always dangerous. The alarm made sense. It matched the threat. Now, look at the world you actually live in.
You can go an entire day surrounded by hundreds of people, on a train, in an office, scrolling through a feed with thousands of faces, and still feel completely, achingly alone. Your ancient alarm system was never built to distinguish between being surrounded by strangers and being surrounded by your tribe. It only knows one thing. Are these people mine, or are they not? And in a world of 6-second interactions and sprawling anonymous cities, the honest answer for your nervous system is often not. That mismatch is not a personal failure. It's an environmental one. Consider what a modern day might actually look like through the lens of that ancient circuit. You wake up, you check a screen before you check a face. You spend hours near coworkers who don't know your history, your fears, your childhood. You eat lunch at your desk. You come home to an apartment where the walls don't know your name. To your rational mind, this might feel like an ordinary Tuesday. To the alarm buried in your nervous system, built for constant tribal contact, it can register as something closer to abandonment. Is it any wonder the alarm never turns off?
Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. The alarm isn't just detecting the absence of people. Research increasingly suggests it's detecting the absence of a specific kind of connection, the kind built on repetition, vulnerability, and mutual reliance. You can attend a party full of laughter and leave feeling emptier than when you arrived, because your nervous system isn't counting the number of humans in the room. It's asking a much older, much sharper question. If something went wrong right now, who would come? That question is ancient. It predates language. It predates fire. It may be one of the oldest questions a human mind has ever asked itself. And so the alarm keeps ringing. Not because something is broken in you, but because something in the environment stopped matching what the alarm was built to expect. The lonely brain in a hyper-connected century isn't malfunctioning. It's responding accurately to a genuine mismatch between ancient wiring and modern architecture. That reframe matters because it changes the story from something is wrong with me to something is wrong with the fit. So what do you do with an alarm this old, this loud, and this accurate?
You don't silence it. You answer it. Consider for a moment how differently other cultures have historically treated this alarm. In many small-scale societies studied by anthropologists, isolation was almost structurally impossible. Meals were shared by default. Children were raised by aunts, uncles, and elders as much as by parents. Sleeping arrangements often placed multiple generations within arm's reach of one another. There was no need for a self-help book about loneliness because the environment itself absorbed the ancient alarm before it ever had a chance to sound. It's only in the last few centuries, and dramatically in the last few decades, that large numbers of humans have lived in structures, apartments, single-occupancy homes, entire cities that were never designed with that alarm in mind. This isn't a call to abandon modern life. It's a call to understand what modern life quietly removed. Consider, too, the strange substitutes the modern world offers instead. A notification sound that mimics the thrill of being noticed. A follower count that mimics the safety of a tribe. A group chat that never sleeps, always available, rarely deep. These substitutes can momentarily quiet the alarm, the way a sip of salt water can momentarily quiet thirst. But the ancient circuit isn't fooled for long. It wasn't built to be satisfied by an audience. It was built to be satisfied by a witness, someone who would notice if you disappeared for more than a day. The research is almost eerily consistent on this point. It isn't the number of people around you that quiets the ancient circuit. It's the depth of a handful of bonds.
Holt-Lunstad's later work emphasized that a few reliable, reciprocal relationships did more to lower the biological cost of isolation than a wide, shallow network ever could. Quality, not head count, was what the ancient system was actually listening for all along. Maybe that's the real reason a short phone call with an old friend can feel more restorative than an entire evening out with acquaintances. The alarm isn't scanning for noise. It's scanning for belonging. There's also a physical dimension to this that researchers have only recently started to map. Studies on touch and proximity suggest the human nervous system calms measurably in the presence of a trusted person, even without a single word exchanged. Heart rate steadies. Cortisol drops. It's as if the body on some primal level is running a constant head count, checking whether the tribe is close enough to help if something goes wrong.
A crowded room full of strangers does nothing to satisfy that head count. A single trusted person sitting quietly beside you can satisfy it completely. This may explain why loneliness can feel so disorienting to describe. It isn't really about the number of conversations you had today. It's about whether any of them reach the part of your nervous system still keeping watch for danger. The part that has been keeping watch since long before cities, before writing, before agriculture, before almost everything you would call civilization. Think back to the modern moment where this all began. A quiet feeling of emptiness in a crowded world. It felt personal. It felt like something uniquely wrong with you, in your specific life, on your specific day. But it isn't personal at all. It's ancestral. It's a signal passed down through hundreds of thousands of years of human survival, still faithfully doing its job inside a body built for tribes, living in a world built for strangers. So the next time that alarm goes off, the sadness, the ache, the pull toward connection, don't just try to switch it off. Listen to what it's actually telling you. It isn't a flaw in your design. It's proof that underneath everything modern life has built, you are still, exactly as your ancestors were, a creature who was never meant to survive alone.